All right, so we are on to another episode of Collection Connection, learning as we go here. And so I've changed up the format. The last one was only 5 to kind of keep the videos a little shorter and to alternate who starts. And so, yeah, I forgot to say anything to kind of close out the last episode 3. So you ready to go with the pick?
Yep.
All right, your 5 minutes starts now.
All right. Well, you picked Roosevelt, and I was going to go off kind of the style of music that it is, that it kind of harkens back to another time. And I was going to go with LCD Sound System and do that, but I noticed that kind of a lot of my picks have been kind of still the same genre as the one you picked. So I kind of wanted to move to a different genre. So I went off the obvious. You went Roosevelt because it was a car make. I'm going to go off of Roosevelt because it's the name of 2 of America's presidents. So I went with the Presidents of the United States of America. This is their second album. I forgot what it's called now. I think it's just self-titled because it's weird. They do have one before this. This is considered their first one, but they have, I guess, an independent one before this. This is when they got on Columbia. I love the Columbia-looking CD. Like that. Woo. But, I mean, they formed in 1994. This came out in 1996, 1995. 1995. 3 huge hits off of this. Kitty, Lump, and I think the song that drove everybody nuts, Peaches. Because, you know, peaches are free. So it's a trio. They did this album, and then they did one called The Presidents of the United States of America 2. And that's also a pretty good album. Another weird track on this one is Kick Out the Jams. I'm not sure if it's a cover of MC5's Kick Out the Jams. It's done very, very differently. And it doesn't start off with, you know, the classic MC5 intro.
Mm-hmm.
But I think this is a pretty solid album for the most part. I think it just kind of got, because of Peaches, it kind of got forgotten quite a bit. And this band they broke up after 2. And then they got back together, and they broke up again. And it had to do with the front man. I can't think of his name right now. But the front man just wanted to spend more time with his family and, you know, be at home. And so they kind of did an album. I think they did a quick tour, and then they were done again. And I think in 2004, they formed again, and they've been doing it fairly steadily since that time. So I guess the guy's kids have grown up now when you stop and think about it. Their kids would be well into their 20s now if they were just born in 1995, which I don't know, you know. But if you stop and think about it, yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy that's already 25 years old, sort of, you know?
Right. So it's just like, okay, my kids are done, and, you know, empty nest syndrome. Hey, let's make an album. And so, yeah, this one and the one after this one is, I think both of them are pretty good. So I went with the obvious because I knew I wanted to switch up the musical style.
Makes sense.
Especially since I knew this was going to be the beginning of the fourth one. Had to come back with something different.
Mm-hmm. All right. You still got 25 seconds.
Well,
how many presidents can you name?
Probably. George Washington, Samuel Adams.
All right. Well, you've named one so far.
John Hancock.
Ben Franklin.
And Franklin.
All right. Well, that burned your last 30 seconds. So I will give. I don't have any presidents of the United States of America. I do remember Peaches.
I thought you would.
No, I don't. There's a lot of that '90s music that kind of fit in that vein that passed me by. I was in a musical funk at that point, and yeah, a lot of that stuff, that was kind of punk pop from the '90s. Didn't appeal to me terribly, but so I just didn't buy a lot of it. So yeah, I will see what I can come up with based off of that.
All right. Oh, wait a second.
Yeah, shoot it over.
Oh, here we go. Oh.
Coming in hot. Ooh, all right.
These are getting late. All right.
All right, sounds good. All right, we're here. We got day 2. It occurred to me that I'm a terrible host and didn't mention for this go around that I'm here again with my brother. Oh, I guess he's that way. Brother Eric from the Plastic Soundwave Cult. You can check out his channel and videos. He uploads semi-regularly. And
Almost regularly.
Yeah, a little more brand and you'll be there. So you left me with Presidents of the United States of America, their self-titled album, and my connection. You mentioned during your video that there was a sort of cover of Kick Out the Jams on there, which I listened to, and basically they took the riff and the chorus, such as it is, let me be who I am and let me kick out the jams. And so I thought of another album that contains a cover song that plays sort of liberally with the lyrics from the original. And it is a cover of Culture Club's Do You Really Want to Hurt Me by Violent Femmes. The album is Why Do Birds Sing from 1991. They hew a little more closely to the original lyrics, and it's more, he kind of flips the meaning of it, saying, I guess the original chorus is really literally just, do you really want to hurt me? Do you really want to make me cry? And he plays with that a little bit, adds some lines and changes some lines. And even though a lot of the same words crop up, he flips the meaning. Boy George says, lovers never ask you why. And Gordon Gano, the lead singer from Violent Femmes, says, lovers always ask me why. And so he flips the meaning of the song a little bit, but it's not quite as the Presidents of the United States of America just writes entirely new verses that really have nothing at all to do with with the original verses. This one, like I said, it hews a little more closely, but it still is a wandering take. And so this album is one of a few I have from Violent Femmes. Obviously, their debut is a cult classic, and their sort of id-soaked, demented, busking style of music, the thing that they were discovered doing on the streets of Milwaukee, that featured so heavily on their first. They're a band that was discovered as a bunch of buskers who took that style, especially in the debut, and basically played the same sort of music that they were playing on the street. I think they played a lot of the same songs that they had already written. And so there's this crazy neurosis in a lot of Gordon Gano's lyrics. And even though their second and third albums kind of started growing and maybe getting a little more bloated, their fourth album, ironically named 3, was named 3 because they stripped it back down to just the 3. And so the album 3, which was kind of where I came in. I was aware of, like Blister in the Sun and stuff, just kind of being in the atmosphere. But the first album I bought from them was 3 back when it came out. And it was a stripped down sound that was back to that very buskery sound, that street corner sound. So this was the follow-up to that, their 5th album, Why Do Birds Sing? And it meets it, and it starts to wander again a little bit. I think it's a very uneven album. I went with it because it was the one that had the cover of Do You Really Want to Hurt Me, which I don't necessarily think is one of the highlights. It's not bad, but it's more like a joke that wears thin, kind of. But it's got some great, it opens with a great track called American Music, which is very, brushes on a snare drum and ba-dum, catchy song. And Out the Window is a track that I love. Hey Nani Nani is a lot of fun. Girl Trouble is a song that dates back to their original days on the street. So it's got a lot of that, not necessarily Oedipal and energy, but just sort of unlucky in love, unlucky with girls kind of vibe going to it. And it's got a great closer, I'm Free, I like a lot. And then the other ones are kind of hit and miss as you go. There's some stuff I don't like on here at all. Life is a Scream is not a fun song. Yeah, Lack of Knowledge doesn't do a whole lot for me. It kind of tapers off as it goes. I think it starts strong. The first half is pretty good, and then it kind of tapers off with a few highlights toward the end. But overall, I'd say I enjoy it. I wouldn't say it's, I don't think anyone's going to say it's their best album, but it's a fun listen, and a good number, a good half dozen tracks that I like quite a bit. And so that's what, 1991, Why Do Birds Sing? Violent Femmes. Over to you. I don't have a thing to pass it over.
Pull your finger.
Go deep. Oh, one-handed it.
One
Nice.
hand, baby.
One-handed in the end zone. All right, so over to you.
All right. So you picked Why Do Birds Sing? And I listened to that yesterday. It was pretty good. It seems to have a few more musicians on it than the first album that I know from them. I guess the first Violent Femmes album. And I noticed, so I was looking around on it, and I found out that it was produced by a guy named Michael Bainhorn. Bainhorn. I wasn't quite sure how to pronounce his name. But he worked on that album with them, and one of the reasons why they worked with him was because he is not a producer that's looking for his own sound, that he lets the band create their own sound and their own production sound. And in fact, he co-produced that with the Violent Femmes. And another band found out about him and decided, yeah, we like that he'll let us do our sound and produce it with him. And so that band turns out to be Soundgarden. And so Michael Bainhorn produced this album here with Soundgarden. And this is probably their most famous album, simply known as The Super Unknown. Usually when you see people cite Soundgarden, most of the time it is this album. Not my favorite album by them. And admittedly, today I'm going to be kind of refamiliarizing myself with this one again. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's got the hit song Black Hole Sun, Spoon Man. These are all their biggest hits. I don't remember them necessarily having a single on the album before this, which was Bad Motorfinger, that's actually my favorite song by these guys. I mean, famously headed by Chris Cornell, which unfortunately had committed suicide. Is it last year or the year before?
I don't know. I think it's been a couple years now.
So it's been about a couple years now. It wasn't too long, I think, like before Lemmy or something like that. Lemmy Kilmister from Motorhead. But this here definitely, they move out a little bit from the grunge sound, and they take a lot of the heaviness, if I remember right, out of it. They make it. It is a more commercial album for these guys. I think at this point, Chris Cornell and the other guys in the band were willing to experiment with their sound. And so, though this is considered a definitive album by them, it's actually the two albums before this one that I really, really dig. Those ones are like so heavy. This one's still heavy, but it doesn't have the gravitas that the other two do. But I have listened to it, though it's been a while, and it is a good album. You can see why it's the most popular. But then if you're a dork like me, it's like, oh, it's not heavy enough. So, but I believe this is the end of their classic lineup, but I'm not positive on that. I think the guitarist left after this one, but I'm not making any promises, and I'm not married to that idea. And then it starts to make me wonder, am I even close to 5 minutes yet?
You got 23 seconds. I can say that I have some Chris Cornell solo that, again, I don't listen to heavily. And Black Hole Sun is probably on the most palatable end of the spectrum from what I know from them. I think Black Hole Sun is a decent song. So I have no Soundgarden, but it should be okay. We've been listening. I don't know if we expressed this, but if we don't have, or even if we do have each other's picks, we've been listening to them in between as we mull over the connections.
Well, and not just that, but, you can go on YouTube and get these albums, in a playlist and listen to them, in the right order and everything like that. Or you do like me and just, every time your brother suggests something, you just run out and buy the fucking thing.
It's only been twice so far. All right. Well, you pass that over to me, and I will make something out of it here. Oh, thank you. It's in my pocket. Sounds good. All right. And I will see you on the next one.
All right.
All right. Just coincidentally, both Soundgarden and the band that I'm about to pull down as my choice here on allmusic.com have exactly one album in their discography that is rated at 5 stars. In Soundgarden's case, it's Super Unknown. And in this band's case, it is Heaven or Las Vegas. So it's Cocteau Twins, but my actual connection is that the Black Hole Sun video was directed by Howard Greenhalgh, and he also directed the music videos for this album. So that's my connection, is video director. That video, which I watched again, it was ubiquitous, the Black Hole Sun video back in the day, sort of on MTV, but that did not hold up well. It's like a 90s version of the 80s videos that were kind of using the edge of tech at the time that now seem super cheesy that you're almost nostalgic for. But this is using kind of video tricks and stuff, and it really looks cheap and lousy. The Cocteau Twins videos actually hold up a little bit nicer. But yeah, Heaven or Las Vegas is the first Cocteau Twins album that I bought. It was kind of the only one that I bought when it was contemporary. And it is the last album that they recorded for 4AD. before they put out just a couple more records after that on Fontana. They are from Scotland, and famously, Elizabeth Fraser, the vocalist, the singer, both in her lyric writing and in her singing, is almost unintelligible. People who don't know Cocteau Twins probably do know her guest vocal on Massive Attack's Teardrop, which it displays a lot of the same. What is she saying? So it's like a beautiful, gorgeous vocal, but you have no chance. You literally have no chance of being able to sing along with her because a good portion of her lyrics are words from other languages that she doesn't even know what they mean. She just likes the sound of them. And everything is so buttery and creamy in the production that you even have a hard time making out her fake words. But this album, so I have a couple of additional Cocteau Twins records, Treasure and Bluebell Knoll, neither of which have really sunk in. And actually, Heaven in Las Vegas was a slow grower for me. And I've only kind of gained appreciation for it over time. You'd think people like Enya, it has sort of a new aginess to it without feeling immersed in that sort of new age style. It's just unbelievably cushiony, pillowy, ethereal music that's not even that synthy. You think of them as sort of being more of a synth band, but it's really just kind of the arrangements and the production and everything being just so buttery and gorgeous, and I love it. And over time, it's become kind of a go-to album for me. And the singles were Ice Blink Luck and the title track, Heaven or Las Vegas. And that's kind of where I first became aware, not where I first became aware of them, but where I first heard their music. I was aware of Cocteau Twins. They are kind of like a band that is medicine music. I thought of them that way. It was more in the tightly in the genre that I listened to anyway. It was a name, Cocteau Twins, that you heard floated around, associated with the bands that I did like to listen to. And so I thought I should get one of their records. But it took a long time for it to really sink in and really enjoy it on its own merits. But I really do now. It's a top-notch record. They're the band name, just an interesting fact that I looked up. I was wondering where they got the name Cocteau Twins because there are no twins in the band. It's a three-piece, and none of them are related. And they took their name from a song by a band called Johnny and the Self-Abusers, and that band was actually the precursor to Simple Minds. So that band turned into Simple Minds, and the song itself turned into a different song called No Cut, I think, if I can remember correctly. So neither the band nor the song existed in the form that they took their inspiration from, but that's where they got it. I wondered if it had something to do with the director or what, but like the Thompson Twins, it is a band of twins that has no twins in it. That's all I can think of off the top of my head here that I meant to mention. And so, yeah, that's what I got. Cocteau Twins, Heaven in Las Vegas, 1990, 4 AD, 89 or 90, something like that. And I will pass it back to you. I'll go, oh, nice. Good catch. All right.
All right. So the last album you showed was Cocteau Twins.
Mm-hmm.
Was not what I expected. It was much catchier, and not that I was worried that it was going to sound bad before, but it was not a sound that there's definitely still a pop element in it. But I was looking around on it. They're a band from Scotland, and according to Discogs, which was a kind of side connection to this one that I went to. And what it was is I actually went with the guy who mastered the record because I was looking at maybe a producer, but it was a self-produced album. So I was looking at, other jobs that go with making a record, and I saw the guy who mastered it, Jack Adams, a British engineer. I looked him up and realized that I did have a record that he also did master. And we did that album for Kako Twins in, 89, 90. He did this one in 1973. Nazareth, Razamanaz, great album. Razamanaz is a good song. Alcatraz is a great song. Too Bad, Too Sad. That's another killer one on here. This is Nazareth's third album, also from Scotland. So that was just kind of a bonus thing as I was looking into it. And so this is a band that a lot of older people, I think, know, but a lot of younger people like yourself.
Yeah. Okay.
Don't necessarily know that much about Nazareth. I mean, can you name a song from Nazareth?
No, I can name a Jesus, but not a song. In my mind, they're like Three Dog Night, this kind of thing, but I have no idea if that's accurate.
No, much heavier than Three Dog Night. They're definitely more rock and rolly. Somebody once described them like they'd be a good bar band, really good bar band. But I've never seen that much about them live. They do have some pictures, I think, in this one. No. But I believe they were, on A&M. So classic A&M label. Probably though my favorite album by them is their greatest hits, Hot Tracks. That's the one I like best from them because it does have all their hits, but all of their albums that I've listened to so far are pretty darn good. Where am I sitting at on time?
Got a whole minute.
Holy crap. This is the one that I worry about where you can't think of anything else to. Did I say it was released in 1973? And just a good rock and roll album.
What would you say, like hard rock? Just
hard rock. Yeah, I think you'd be surprised when you listen to it. Because to me, they do a lot of songs I feel that people didn't realize that they know. Hair of the Dog is probably their most famous. So do you know Hair of the Dog?
I think I would if I heard it. Yeah.
Now you're messing with a foul bitch.
All right. That wraps up your 5 minutes, actually. On that note, so that wraps up, additionally, this episode of Collection Connection. And so I will have to work in the next episode to make a connection to Nazareth. And I've already forgotten the name of the Razamanaz. Was that what it was? Mm-hmm. All right. So like Razzmatazz, but with an N?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Well, look forward to that one. Leave a comment, make a connection to us, to the records. Check out my brother's videos on his channel. That's right. Or he'll cuss you out and disappear suddenly. And we don't want it. So
I'm coming back.
All right. So check us out. Keep tuned for the next episode. Bye.